Om Gurubhyo Namah. I think it will stand. ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು? I just don't know. Anyway, if it falls down, let me see. I have no belief in modern technology, which is deliberately, intentionally made with this purpose, not to last long. It should not last long. It should create more problems so that you will have more money. So that you spend more money. Okay. I try to say few things with all this broken our technology. We were discussing Adhyasa. Anatma. The point was we were stuck means it is taking in between few disturbances. The point itself is very important. Today is Sugama day. Sorry, first I should have told. Today is Sugama, so I am speaking in English. Sugama is a commentary. Sanskrit commentary of Pujya Swamiji on Adhyasa Bhashya. Okay. So Adhyasa Purvapakshi told Adhyasa requires an object. One object alone can be mistaken for another object. So Atma being subject and Anatma being an object, both being opposite in their nature, quite opposite, stark opposite, quite opposite, stark opposite. Quite means what? Totally opposite means what? In what sense? They can never face each other. Where the subject is, object doesn't exist. When object is, subject doesn't exist. It doesn't even come near. Like light and darkness can never come close to each other. Once the light comes, darkness disappears. Darkness is only when there is no sun. So when they are so opposite to each other, they cannot coexist. How is it possible to mistake one thing for other? It's impossible. Okay, so in these things, Vedantin told Atma is by its real nature. So for this the explanation was that Adhyasa doesn't follow a logic. This we have discussed elaborately in one of the classes, previous classes. What is logic? Logic means you see one event in life, one event, one phenomena, and generalize that phenomena and expect that the thing should behave in the same way everywhere else. Like the fire is hot in one place, fire is hot all over the world. Or if there is a smoke, seeing a smoke, if you find the fire there can't be smoke without a fire. Once you see the snake, once you see the smoke, then invariably there is a fire, because smoke comes only through fire, only from the fire and nowhere else, and from none else. Therefore, this relation of smoke with its cause, you see it in one event in kitchen, and generalize it. Generalize it means wherever there is a smoke, there must be fire. So this general, seeing one event and taking it as a common event, as generalized event, is called simply logic. Therefore, wherever you see the smoke again, you invariably conclude that there is invariably a fire. So this is called logic. You see one event and generalize it, and any other place you see the one part of it and miss the other part. See the smoke and don't see the unable to see the fire. Then with the help of the smoke, its invariable connection, seeing one thing, its invariable connection the other, you infer. This is simply called logic. Now here, so logic means the event or such a phenomenon you must have seen before sometime. But here Atma, Anatma are the totally fresh events. We have not seen any Adhyasa previously. This is the only Adhyasa we have now. Atma is the only one Atma. You have not seen one more Atma before, and this Atma is a similar. If you had seen one Atma before and this Atma is a similar to that Atma, then you can use the logic. There is no one Atma and then again you are seeing a second Atma similar to it. There is only one Atma, that is yourself. So logic won't work here, because this is the only thing. If a thing is only one in life, that is the only one in life, no second thing to compare with, then what logic can you use there? Because that is the only thing to be proven. If you on the illustration of another thing, you can prove this. On the strength of or in illustration of another object, you can prove this. But this is the only phenomenon and there is no second thing to compare with. Then in that case, what will you do? Directly you have to see the thing directly and accept how it is, as it is. So here Siddhanti says that Adhyasa is in your life. You don't need any logic. For certain facts in life, certain means any fact in life, a fact should be seen as a fact. Don't ignoring the fact directly. Don't use logic. Means some people say in Sutra Bhasha, one player he says, first you see its probability and then accept its reality. That is not the way. He says to accept a thing to be real, you don't first establish its probability, possibility, and then start seeing the phenomenon. It's not like that. In fact, a probability itself emerges from the reality. First you see the reality, first you see a fact, then you imagine the probability. It's not that first you imagine probability and then see that. First you establish the probability and then establish a fact. Therefore here Adhyasa is there because it is Anubhava Siddham. It is there in our life. Now don't go by the logic. Logic means what? Logic is in another experience somewhere. If there is an experience, that is logic. What more you need? Once there is an experience and that is a logic. End of it. Now you find yourself taking Anatma as yourself, then that is Adhyasa. What more you need? That is Adhyasa. Anyway, this point we have discussed already. Each time, since there is a gap between the previous class and this class, this is my nature, because to bring the student into the topic, first few minutes I spend, sometimes it goes half an hour. Because the topic is such, to review the previous topic, to bring to the person, bring the Shrota to the topic, it takes little time. Okay, the next point is, Atma is the subject. Atma is no object of any thought. Atma is no object of any thought ever. But tentatively it appears as an object just for the purpose of Adhyasa. Not before Adhyasa, not after Adhyasa, just during Adhyasa, just for the purpose of Adhyasa, Atma becomes an object. Otherwise, in its real nature, it's never an object of any thought. This was the point, next point we discuss, and it's very important. I think all the topics, all the points we are discussing are very, very important. Now here, Atma in its real nature is never an object, but it appears as an object during Adhyasa for the purpose of Adhyasa, just for the purpose of Adhyasa. At this point, Purvapakshi asked a question, does Atma become an object first and later Adhyasa takes place? Or it is due to Adhyasa, it becomes an object, the tentative object, not really object. Really, Atma is never an object of any thought, but tentatively it becomes an object. Even the tentative objecthood with a purpose, for a particular purpose and tentative objecthood, regarding that, does it become an object first and later Adhyasa takes place? Or first Adhyasa takes place and then becomes an object? Which one is first? For this, Guruji have to tell, you see, you have a habit of thinking anything only in terms of time, in terms of sequence. What is before, what is later. In your very question, there are one or two assumptions, and because of that assumption, this mistake is happening. And I only correct your assumption rather than answering. See, the Guruji's answer is, first you assume Adhyasa is an event. And then you say that first Atma should be an object and then it should be an event. Now this is the mistake. The mistake means this is a wrong assumption you have. Now I want to correct that very assumption. Adhyasa is not an event. So it is not an occurrence in time you are asking. It is directly found in your Anubhava. That's all we say. You find it in your Anubhava. So in Purvapakshi's way of questioning, there is one or two assumptions. This one assumption is there, that Adhyasa is an event that takes place. For an event to occur, before the event occurs, event of Adhyasa occurs, Atma should become an object. First Atma should be an object, then Adhyasa should take place. Why do you put this? First thing is these two things, Atma becoming an object and then Adhyasa and finding an Adhyasa. These two you are taking as two separate. Two things, you are taking these two are two things. One assumption. Second is there is a sequence between them. Sequence, one is before, another is later. And Adhyasa is an event, occurs later as a second step. First step being Atma's objecthood. Atma becoming an object is first step and Adhyasa taking place is the second step. All these are assumptions. Why do you call assumption? Because Acharya, Shankaracharya is pointing out your Anubhava. Adhyasa is an Anubhava we are pointing out. Now what we are pointing out you leave out. You want to speculate, try to logical possibility and how it can happen, how this can happen, happening, how happening, possibility, probability, all this conditions, all that is you are imagining again. Imagining. Why do you assume, imagine? We are simply pointing out Adhyasa is there. See directly, that's what you are. You are speaking, you are an individual, that is Adhyasa. Now what more you need? You need any better proof than this? Just to give a worldly example, a simple example. People ask a question generally. Does one need a guru? Why should I need a guru? Can't we do our own research, our own, like modern days people do lot of research and lot of PhDs are only meaningless PhDs. Like American style we are learning. PhDs are good. I think if we do only necessary, where there is a necessary PhD and a qualitative PhD, and don't imitate America, I think India will be much better and much happy. We don't waste our time, we don't waste our money and universities. So either you have to publish or die. It is the pressure in America, I am told. Either you have to publish or you are die. So if that is a pressure, then people have to write something, because for sake of writing you have to write. You have to publish something for sake of publishing. Now whether the matter is useful or real or not, something you say, something nonsense, right or wrong or something. You write a PhD saying that I am a fool. That is me. He is a fool, you write you publish. That's all, you will get PhD. Another fellow says, who called me fool himself is a fool, another PhD, you get it. Now you tell me, what will you get? What do you get by this kind of research? So research itself has become an industry. So you do research because the real point is there is a research because there is a need, there is a facts you find out. And finding out the research also, where is the end for it? If you keep on finding out in the world, there is no end. World is a world, endless world. Where is the hurry? Do you want to exhaust the whole world? It will be endless. So why people feel the pressure to find out more and find out more, where is the end for this more? Why should you be in such a hurry? If they are in hurry, we should pity them and leave them. Why should Indians also imitate their haste? And Indians also become like that, wasting money, wasting time, wasting universities, and most of them are 70% of PhDs are waste. Okay. So this I'm talking about research. I'm not telling we are against research. In India also was doing research. But it should be a part of life. Wherever necessary, people go, and those who are really intelligent, those who really want to find out, do it. There will be real discovery, and discovery will be useful to humanity. But most of the PhDs cannot be published, cannot be read. Most of them are trash. Just a waste of time, because there is nothing in it. Only superficially you build something, you talk something, and just put some arguments and then say something, end up saying something. Just for sake of publishing you do it. Why? If there is no topic, if there is no discovery, leave it. You have tried it and you couldn't discover it, don't publish. Don't call it PhD. Everybody need not be PhDs. Doesn't matter. You tried and enough, that's all. You couldn't get it, that's enough, leave it. Leave it. Why should? If you tried it and you must publish it, why? So this is unnecessary, leave them. So similarly here, the same mindset. We want to see Adhyasa and Atma becoming an object. This is which is first, which is before and which is later. Here he says both are simultaneous. They are not two in fact. Atma appearing as an object and Adhyasa not taking place. Adhyasa being found, we have to say. We find ourselves in Adhyasa. Adhyasa is not an occurrence. We don't make Adhyasa. We don't commit Adhyasa. Adhyasa nor it takes place. Adhyasa neither happens nor takes place. It is not an event. Then how do you say? There is an Adhyasa. You find Adhyasa. That's all. There is Adhyasa. You find Adhyasa. Only these two expressions fit into it. There is Adhyasa. You find yourself in Adhyasa. That's all. These two expressions are true expressions. But Adhyasa taking place, making Adhyasa, happening Adhyasa, all these things imply an event in time, an occurrence, an event. But Adhyasa is not an event. It's not an occurrence. Okay? Therefore, the very usage of a word gives a misunderstanding, creates a wrong notion, wrong idea. In fact, all teaching is only correcting the wrong notions. See, the whole Vedanta is correcting the wrong notion, correcting a wrong thinking. Then you can't use a wrong expression. Therefore, language, using a correct language becomes important. Vedantic teaching, using a correct word, correct expression, correct idea is most important, because whole Vedanta is only that. If that is compromised, then there is only more misunderstandings. Whole Vedanta is only correcting the misunderstanding. And you can't say that no, he told differently, but he is also correct. His Prakriya is different, he is also correct. Mula Vidya, they told it, but even then is correct. All are correct. These are all loose type, like a politician's talk is good. To get votes, this is okay. But not for understanding the truth. Okay? Therefore, you find adhyasa. There is adhyasa, that's all. You point out, I see. Yes, there is adhyasa, that's all. Now, why now all other logic is unnecessary. But anyway, just to satisfy his curiosity, because the mind sometimes does too much. So even to correct that assumption, he says, adhyasa, finding an adhyasa, and also Atma becoming an object of adhyasa, object of awareness, both are simultaneous. Okay? Simultaneous means, in fact, they are one. Why simultaneous? Simultaneous is a way of telling. In fact, both are one. You find there is adhyasa and Atma becoming an object just for the purpose of adhyasa. That means Atma is adhyasta and it is become an object. Object of I thought or you thought. Here we say Atma is, this is what we were, next topic we were discussing. Atma is object of I thought, Anatma is object of you thought. Okay. So there is an adhyasa. Here, yada kalvadhyasaha tada atmanyadhyasa vishayata anatmadhyasa sambandhascha ityubhayamapi samakalameva nirvatyate ityanubhavanusarena kalpyate na purvapari bhavopi kaschit. Up to this we have discussed before. Okay, half an hour is gone because there was a gap. Now next, yat punar vishayatvamanaapadya atmanadhyasa ityuktam tatra pratipatti kramameva ashritya tathoktam. Here you see, Atma becomes an object and then Atma, you find Atma to be an object of awareness, object of a thought, and then Adhyasa takes place. This Purva Paribhava sequence is told just for sake of communication. In Anubhava there is no sequence. There are not two steps in Anubhava. Anubhava is one. We for communication divide it and talk. Okay? We divide them into two steps and talk. Just because I am talking as two steps, don't imagine that in your Anubhava there are two. Anubhava is one. We talk of them as two. Okay? So when we talk of them as a two, in your mind receive as one. Keep it as a one. Never divide them two. Divide them into two. Okay? Okay, now next. Natu kala krutam kramopiti deshaha. Oh, I think we have discussed this, I think. Okay. Nacha asmat pratyaya vishayata swarupame vastu pratyagatmanah kimanena kalpanena iti sampratam. Okay. This is a good point. Purapakshi is raising again another point. I think if there is a long gap, I forget also which one I have taught, which I have not. Probably it may be repetition, doesn't matter. Okay. No, I think this point we touched. Yeah. Purovastite. Anyway, I'll check again. So, aham pratyaya vishayata. Atma appearing as an object of I thought, because in worldly parlance, in empirically, we take Atma as only I thought. I alone we refer. This aham pratyaya, Purvapakshi says, why calling it adhyasa? Why not take Atma is real aham object of I thought only? Why don't we say Atma is really an object of I thought? Why going round and round say that it is only tentatively for sake of adhyasa alone? In real nature, Atma is not an object at all. Why say that? Assume permanently it is adhyasa alone. Permanently it is the very nature of Atma. He says no, because I thought you find only in waking state and dream state only during adhyasa. In its real nature, like in deep sleep, ananvayat, Atma is available for no thought in its real nature, because the thought which we apply, the thought which we use to refer to Atma. See, even to refer to Atma, you have to bring in some thought, I thought. Without bringing I thought or some thought, first person, second person, third person, Atma cannot be referred at all, cannot be thought of. How can you think? See, you can think of Atma only through I thought or you thought or some thought, first person, second person, third person. Some person you have to bring it into it. Suppose you remove all the three, no first person, no second person, no third person. Think of Atma. Okay, I'll think of it. Think and tell me tomorrow. Okay? How can you think of Atma? Not as a first person, second person, third person. Still you think. Impossible. Okay. Therefore, this I thought, or any thought for that matter, I thought, you thought, or first person, second person, third person, no thought of a no person. Thought of a no person really is inherent to Atma. See, that's an interesting thing. No thought of no person, either first person, second person, third person. Thought of no person is really intrinsic to Atma. It doesn't always remain with Atma. Tentatively in waking state, Atma appears as a first person. Okay? Or in dream also, it appears as a first person. But in its real nature, like in deep sleep, where Atma is beyond all references, beyond all thought. Beyond all thought, beyond all references, Atma is available for no thought. Because there in Sushupti is referred by no thought. It just is itself, self-existing. Therefore, ananvayat, here Swamiji says, nahi yavad atma bhavam asmat pratyayasya anvayo asti yathoktam naishkarma siddhau. Throughout the Atma's nature, this I thought doesn't follow with it. I thought doesn't remain with it, doesn't follow with the Atma throughout its nature. It is only tentatively from a particular angle alone that I thought is used to refer the Atma. That the I thought is never always intrinsically goes with the Atma. It doesn't go with Atma. Because we see Atma independent of I thought in certain experiences, like in deep sleep, like in Samadhi, like in Murcha, like in small baby. There is no I thought at all. Atma remains without any I thought. When you were baby, you also didn't have any I thought. You never referred to yourself as an I thought. There was no I thought at all. It is very interesting to watch. See, you see the small baby of 1 year, 2 years old. It doesn't have an I thought. Even psychologists say 2. I think at the age of 2, then only that I thought arises. Before that, there is no reference to I. There is reference to Atma through I. So in deep sleep, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in coma, in Murcha, in all these experiences, no reference to Atma through any particular thought. That means a thought which we are using is only a tentative. In a conditionally we are using it. Beyond that condition, Atma in its real nature, not available for any thought. This one has to again and again see how I thought is only an adhyasa, not the nature of Atma. Here Swamiji is quoting one Naishkarma Siddhi shloka. Atmanaschedahan dharmo yayan mukti sushuptayoh yatho nanveti tenayam anyadiyo bhavedaham. This aham buddhi, I thought, I notion. This I notion is not Atma dharma. Atma dharma means is not the nature of Atma. Atmanaschet aham dharma. If it were, if I notion were the nature of Atma, it would always remain with Atma. That means it could never be separated. Atma could never be found independent of I notion. That means Atma and I notion would have been synonyms. If I notion was the real nature of Atma, then I notion and Atma would have become synonyms. And you could never segregate them. You could never separate them. I notion dropping off and Atma remaining without any notion. This experience would not have been there in our life. But fortunately, we have an experience of Atma which is free from any notion, free from any I notion. This is very important. Sushupti is an experience which shows that you exist without any notion about yourself. You don't have any thought, any notion about yourself. You don't entertain. You don't refer to yourself as I, but you exist. Ah, what a beautiful experience it is. You exist without any thought, without any notion, without any idea, so and so, this or that, and no first person, no second person, no third person. It just exists, without any person, without any notion. And this experience proves that I notion is a tentatively assumed one in a waking state and dream state. It is a tentatively attributed for a particular purpose and from particular angle only, not in its real nature. Because what doesn't belong to its real nature is only attributed, imposed. That attributed or imposed. Attributed or imposed, however you attribute, however you impose, you can't make it stick to it. Like in a mirror, however you bring a reflection upon the mirror, you can't make it to stick to the mirror. Can you make it? If a reflection comes, if somebody is standing, if some object is put in front of it, can you make a reflection stick to the mirror permanently? Then you must be a great man. I think a scientist should discover such a I don't know, science may discover, we don't know. But can you make a reflection that has appeared in the mirror remain there permanently? So permanently that you can't erase it at all. Can you do that? Because it never existed. The reflection is only an outsider. Outsider means you are imposing. Imposing means it is not there, you are only seeing. In your very seeing is imposing. Your perception is imposing, that's all. Very perception is imposing. It's not there. It's not there at all. The very perception is imposition. Therefore, the reflection is not there in the mirror. You're only seeing it. It's a wonder, you see. You're like the second moon, you're only seeing it. It doesn't exist a second moon. Sometimes when you press your eye here, below your eye, you see the second moon. Second moon is only your perception, it doesn't exist. The blue sky is only a perception. The aeroplane, small aeroplane of this size is only your perception. It doesn't exist. Even while you are seeing, there the person who is traveling by plane, he sees the plane as a huge one. Isn't it? Your perception doesn't become a reality. Perception, only a perception. You see because you are only seeing, without the thing being there. It's a wonder. Therefore, a perception is a perception without the fact remaining such. The fact is something different. Something different. Similarly, I thought is not the essential nature of Atma. The whole purpose of Vedanta is only this much. To understand, to discover yourself free from any notion, free from any thought. In fact, all samsara is this alone. What we call jivahood. What is jivahood? What is jivatvam? Jivatvam is you find yourself as an individual and referable through I notion, and that an individuality referring yourself through I notion is jivahood. That jivahood is only a feeling, it is only a thought. A thought you entertain, you live in that thought, and you think that I am an individual, I am subject to birth and death and suffering and all. So pain and pleasure and honor and dishonor, all kinds of failure and success. Oh, what a torture of life we have been living. What a samsara we are going through. Pain and pleasure and separation, love and hate and so on. All these things are centered on an individuality. But individuality itself is a way of looking. It's not an existing reality. Sense of individuality is a way of looking, is a notion. But there is something in you which is beyond a notion of individuality. You are no individual because the notion of individuality is not there. Bah, is a great discovery. This is the real Brahma Jnana. This is the Brahma means what? Knowledge of Brahman. But I'm just for sake of fun, I'm interpreting differently. Brahma Jnanam. Brahma means vast, the biggest. Okay. Brahma Jnanam generally means knowledge about Brahman. I'm just for sake of fun, I'm using differently. Brahma means highest. Therefore, we say it is the highest knowledge. It is the greatest knowledge. What is the greatest knowledge? Understanding your reality, that you are neither an individual, and individuality is only a notion, is only an angle of looking in a contextual appearance. It is a contextual appearance, a conditional appearance, not a real reality. A contextual notion, a conditional notion is not a reality. Your reality is your highest notion. Understanding the reality is you are no individual. You are no individual. Because as an individual, taking yourself to be an individual, a conditioned individual, a contextual individuality, that individuality remaining in that context, appearing in that condition, undergoes all suffering, subject to birth and death and sukha, dukkha, janma, marana, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, all janma, maranadi samsara, sukha, dukkha, pain and pleasure and suffering and all kinds of things. What a torture. Samsara is a real torture. Mind creates a terrible feelings. The pain and pleasure, inferiority complex, superiority complex, frustrations, depressions. Small thing, somebody refuses, somebody rejected, you go into depression. See how depression is such a severe thing. Depression is only a thought, is only a way of looking, but how much it creates a pain. It is only a feeling. Somebody insulted you, it is only a thought. Insult means what? Somebody called you some names. He only called just because he called you. Do you become like that? But you imagine that, oh, I have been insulted, that insult shatters you, upsets you, you get devastated. Oh my God, you lose your sleep, you miss your sleep, you can't take food and you get restless. What not you and even if you take tablet, it won't change. People are surprised. Can this individuality be a simple thought? No, it can't be thought, it must be real. Purvapakshi says the same thing. If it is simple thought, can simple thought create so much of pain? Simple thought should be a thought. But it is becoming a reality. Yeah, that's what is a thought. Even the reality is a thought. See, in depression, in frustration, in insult, in sorrow and sting, you feel as if really you are tortured, you are crushed by all these things. But the thought changes, everything evaporates. The feeling of insult, depression just gets evaporates. Then you understand what is depression. Is it an object? Is it a solid thing? Is it a solid entity? It is only a way of thought. If you understand a depression, you understand whole world is only a thought. Whole world is a way of appearing, that's all. Whole individuality is an appearance. You just watch the depression. Frustration, depression, humiliation, how much it gives you pain. You think that something really has happened. People, you see, because of the frustration, depression, etc., you feel something is holding in your chest. Then you think that there is a heart attack has happened. Go and test it, no heart is running well. Then what is this? You feel the pain. You see, psychologically, some person has a deep pain, deep psychological, a kind of a depression like, and you know that your shoulder gets frozen. I met a person. I don't want to take his name. He's a very important person, important politician he is. So he's very important. Now see, his shoulder is frozen. He's not able to lift. That's all he has to live like that. He sleep on one shoulder and sleep on back like this. That's all. The shoulder remains for days together. He's not able to lift. So painful that he just can't lift it. And psychologically, His conviction is changed. After some time, after half an hour, 1 hour, he is able to lift. Oh my God. See, the psychological feeling brings about such a change in the physical body. Your shoulder gets frozen. Or you get some stomach feeling that you don't feel hungry. You just cannot eat food. Or something happens in your stomach severely. No hunger at all. How a thought alone brings about such a change in a physical change. A real change, a physical change, a simple notion. If you watch these events, you understand, is the world not something more than a notion? You wonder, whole world is, the appearance of the world is just a notion. You watch the dream, that's why our Shastras say, you watch the dream, how reality. But all that is nothing but a thought alone. It's a great wonder of wonders. If there is a wonder, I think life alone is the biggest wonder. The world is a different, biggest wonder. That God created the world, that means He created a thought in me and a thought in me. That I see the world, I see myself as an individual and I see the world around me. All this is a notion, just a notion, devoid of any reality. And it's a great wonder, but we are stuck with it. It is simply thought, but thought itself is such a biggest problem in life. What is the biggest problem in life? What is the biggest suffering in life? Samsara is the biggest suffering. Ajnanam, that's why our Vedanta says the whole thing is due to simple misunderstanding. Ajnanam, a simple misunderstanding is a cause of such a biggest samsara. And one who knows the truth is the highest man, equal to God. We worship jnanis in life. A person who has corrected his notion, he's become liberated man. Living liberated, Jivan Mukta. There is no thought. That I am an individual is only a notion. He understood and he is no more an individual. He is the whole being, whole cosmic being he is. He sees himself as a cosmic being, absolute being. And individuality is only a role in the drama. He is no more an individual. Individuality is just a superficial. It doesn't exist for him. A person who drops off, who corrects his sense of individuality, who corrects his perception of the world, and he stands without the perception of the world, without the perception of himself as an individual and also the world. He remains free from it, and that is Jnani. Jnanitvam is also so natural. That you are a Jnani, that you are free from the world is a real fact. In fact, much more real than this world. Because the world doesn't exist at all, it is only a thought. You can never lose it. You can never get rid of your reality. Your reality is a reality which is beyond anybody's control. Nobody can change it. You have no choice regarding the truth. That you are free from individuality, free from any notion, independent of any notion. You exist because you exist, that's all. Your being is an absolute being, cosmic being, universal being. Whole cosmos is you. Not only that you are not an individual, but whole cosmos is you. All people are yourself. You are just infinite being. This is the reality, this is a fact. And the sense of individuality is only a way of looking, a tentative looking, from a given angle of looking. That's what we mean Adhyasa. That's what we mean Jiva Bhava. The entire world, the worldly relationship, the society, the nations, the whole society, even the physical objects, like the physical elements, Pancha Bhutas are only a thought. Can you imagine? Whole Pancha Bhutas are only in your thought. The modern science is coming closer to it. Earlier Advaitins would say like this, oh, some people didn't believe it. Is it a wonder that the whole world is only a thought? Only a notion it is. You talk to the modern science. The Max Planck, what is that, quantum theory, and then what you call, whatever the theories they have got. They also come to say that there is no world. World seems to be more a notion than the reality. The atom, you divide the atom, comes into electrons, protons and neutrons. What are those particles? Even they say, in fact I have not studied, my knowledge is only old knowledge in 90s. And those who know this quantum theory, they know much more than me. So they say the particles are only appearances. Particles cannot be established as an independent entity. The way you look at them, the particles appear. Particles are only appearances through your mind. They don't have a reality. They don't have an independent, absolute existence. This was a shocking discovery. Even to discover this, they took help of Vedanta. Some of the scientists, they read Vedanta. They told whole world is a mithya. It is only your way of appearance. It is only your thought alone. They just got a clue, a suggestion from this. See, this is what we mean Shruti Pramana. Shruti Pramana means a clue, a suggestion we give you. And you listen to the suggestion, you turn your attention in that angle and start discovering it. Even to discover that, you need your mind to be turned, your attention to be turned. This is called Shruti. This is called Vedanta Vakyam, Vedanta Pramana. This is called Mahavakya. What is Mahavakya? Mahavakya is giving a suggestion, is asking you to turn your attention in a particular angle. That in which angle you have to turn, that you would not know on your own. Because you as an individual live in that notion of individuality. The person, the jiva who lives in that notion of individuality, himself cannot come out of that notion. He can't push himself, he can't pull himself out of that notion of individuality, out of that notion of jivahood. Impossible. Nobody can do that. That's where we say Shruti comes. Mahavakya, Upadesha, Agama, Athava Shruti or Veda. What is Veda? Veda in Jnanakanda particularly, in Vedanta, is this suggestion. This suggestion asking you to turn your attention. So there are two ways, two teachings, two levels of teaching. One teaching, retaining your sense of individuality and teach. As an individual, what all you can achieve, what all you can go achieve many things. You can meditate, you can have experiences, mystic experiences, yogic experiences, esoteric experiences, bhaktas experiences. So that is a nature of imagination, nature of a notion. Within the notion, you can have varieties of experiences, because all those experiences are notion. World is a notion, your individuality is a notion. As an individual, the various experiences you undergo are the notions. So within those notions, you can have lot of variety. You can do meditations, japas and yogic experiences you can have. All of them are a divine experiences within the very notion of the world. World as a whole is one notion. Within that notional world, you can have a changes. You can improve, you can modify, you can do purify, you can do various experiences, various notional experiences you can have. All that is within the world. All that is within Adhyasa. That another teaching, Vedanta teaches, Veda, why not Vedanta? Veda teaches these two levels of teaching. One is improve, correct your life within that notional jivahood, notional world. You will have different experiences. See, I think this you can convince you, just as you have got when person is frustrated and depressed, he will have a painful experiences, isn't it? Very painful experience. The painful experience becomes reality, hardened reality, like a substantial, like a hard objects. A depression is a purely notion, but you get a pain you come to have. Now this is a negative side. Take to the positive side. You develop a sattvika mood. You develop a yogic mind. You develop a bhaktas mind. You develop a esoteric mind. You can purify your mind. The positive side, the all notional mind and the world and everything can develop into a highly noble, gentle, very loving mind it can develop. You start having experiences of all your Ishta Devata, Rama, Krishna, Shiva. You will have all experiences. You can have various Devata experiences, yogic powers. You can travel. Your mind can go and travel into past, travel into future, like Nostradamus, like Veerabrahmam, Potuluri Veerabrahman Garu. You can see the futures. You can go into the past. You can see your past Janma, future Janma. All that you can see. So within this thought alone, how much you can cultivate. So Veda teaches two levels. One is within the thought you can cultivate, you can modify, you can improve, you can grow, you can develop so much of possibilities of yogic power, bhakti, bhaktas, visions and experiences, esoteric and all that. This is one teaching Veda teaches. Second teaching is help you to drop off the very notion and you remain the pure, unconditional Atma Swarupam Advitiyam. Two teachings. Okay? Veda addresses these two topics. These are the two levels of teaching. One is the very transcend all level of mind, all level of notional level. It is the highest level, middle level, or lowest. Lowest is going into depression and going into animal level. Middle is remaining in the human level. Another is going into the Rishi and Devata level. Go into the Devata levels and then start seeing mystic experiences, supernormal experiences, all yogic, esoteric and all that. That is a higher level. Normal is human. Lower level is go into the plants and animals and become like a hardened inert object. Something like an inert. You become like a stamba. Abrahma stamba pariyanta we call them. Abrahma stamba pariyanta is all the mystic experiences Devata and Rishi. Middle are the human. Lower level is plants, animals and insects and all that. Okay. All these are within the notion. Within the state of waking, within the state of dream. But there is another experience where you just transcend all this is a notion. Divide of any notion, divide of any subject, object, thought. It is a thoughtless condition that is a pure consciousness, non-dual. It is independent of any thought. Thought may be there, but you are independent of it. You are untouched by thought. Okay? So these are the two levels of teaching our Vedanta teaches. Some people adopt within the notional level divine experiences like yogic, bhakta and all that. Some people transcend the very thought and see directly yourself as a pure consciousness. So both are possible. Both teachings have been there in our tradition. Therefore, even the science is coming. The hardness, the substantiality of the world is disappearing. The hardness of the world is disappearing. It is only a notion. It is only your mind. It is only a thought. It was shocking to scientists first they discovered. The hard reality of the world is only a myth. Myth means a thought, I mean. By myth, I mean only a thought, a notion. Or the hard reality of the world, the substantiality, the hardness of the world is only a notional. Within the notion, it looks like object. But all that subject is an object, world is an object, time and space is only a notion, object is a notion, subject is a notion, all your experiences of pain and pleasure and real and unreal, all that is a notional. This is what we say, adhyasa. Okay. Anyway, this topic goes on until you discover the truth. Goes on, will continue in the next. So with this, we stop with this paragraph. Thus, Sureshwaracharya's Naishkarmya Siddhi quotation that the notion about the Atma is not the nature of Atma. If it were nature of the Atma, it would have remained continuously with it, but it doesn't remain. Atma can pull out itself, means Atma can remain divide of any notion. It's itself pure consciousness. But notion as a world, notion as individuality, notion of all these experiences are tentative, conditional. Only from that condition you are appearing as a jiva and the world is a condition like in dream. Dream appears only from the standpoint of dream. In your real nature you have no dream. You are not a dream at all. So this is the Sureshwaracharya shloka. Next paragraph and next point we shall continue. Om in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.